Do we need to use it?
Good evening. It's pretty sensitive. It'll pick up any banter in the room if anyone wants to shout obscene things onto the recording. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a fantastic tasting featuring someone I've met and someone I've been dying to meet. Ardnamurchan is an incredible distillery. Adelphi is an incredible bottler. You all know that. That's why you're here. I'll let God. No intro from me.
Do we start?
Ian was last night, not tonight. Let's make sure the audio is working.
So do we need to hold this, or can we place it strategically?
Yeah, if you speak it, yes.
Is
For
that
the camera, Alex, Connal. Good.
But is it picking me up here?
It's picking you up.
Excellent.
Cool.
Good evening. Great to see you all again. Can I just ask, my memory is fading rapidly. Has anyone here not been to an Adelphi or an Ardnamurchan tasting? That's pretty good, actually. So we get to kind of bore everyone else with some of the early story. No, very briefly, because the most important thing tonight is, of course, what's in your glass. But just as background, Adelphi was founded in 1993 as an independent bottler of Scotch whisky. It takes its name from a long-lost distillery in Glasgow called the Loch Catron Adelphi Distillery. And the reason it took its name was that the person who founded Adelphi in its current form was a guy called Jamie Walker, and it was his great-great-grandfather who had the original distillery. So that was the kind of the name continuation, if you like. Jamie loved Scotch whisky. He loved single cask. He loved it in its most pure state. And one of his great friends was the well-known Charlie McLean, the Nose, who I've just remembered because I was looking at some of the old boards on the wall. Charlie and I did a tasting here in 2013, which was before we even had a distillery, so that's some time ago. Anyway, Charlie helped Jamie select single casks for Adelphi. So going around different distilleries, they would taste samples upon samples. They would maybe get one in every 40 they tried. That was how selective they would be. Time rolled on. Jamie sold the business in 2003 to two Scotsmen from the west coast, from a lovely remote peninsula called Ardnamurchan. And in 2004, more by luck than any particular judgment, I stumbled across them trying to buy some of the whiskey and ended up taking on running their company because they were too busy doing other things. So just to put it into perspective, when I took the company on in 2004, we had just over 200 bottles in stock, and we had about 3 casks. That was the size of Adelphi. So really, really niche. However, single malt as a category was doing really well, and it was growing pretty quickly. And it was one of the easiest sales jobs I ever had. It was simply to get on a plane and start flying around different countries, introducing people to Adelphi, and then ensuring that we had supply to meet the demand. Because obviously we weren't making anything ourselves in those days. And that was where we kind of hit the stumbling block in 2007. So I went back to the shareholders and I said, we've got 3 options. You know, we can build a distillery, we can buy a distillery, or maybe we just drink what we have left and retire into the sunset. Stupidly, we decided to build one, and it took us a few years to get planning permission and to really decide the design of this distillery. But just remember, for those of you who haven't been, and I know some of you have, Ardnamurchan it's not just remote, it is properly remote. It's an hour and a half on a single track road.
Took me 45 minutes.
From the ferry?
From Fort Williams.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't. I call utter bullshit.
I wish I was joking.
Mate, I drive a Tesla. There's no way you got there in 45 minutes.
For which road?
The single track road.
No, north of the ferry.
The ferry town. How long does it take you?
I've done it in just under an hour. There's no way.
Did you encounter any other cars? I didn't encounter a single other car.
You came via helicopters.
You went to the wrong distillery.
It was a very fast Peugeot.
Yeah, there's nothing faster than a hire car. Anyway, so that, because of where we were, or where we are, we had to really think about how we were going to design this place. First of all, we had simply the size restrictions. So your largest piece of single equipment in a distillery is typically the mash tun. We ended up having a 2.5 ton mash tun, simply because the road at its minimum is 3.2 meters. So you can't get anything bigger up the road. Then we had to decide how are we going to get fuel in there to heat the place, how are we going to get electricity, all of those lovely things you need to run a distillery. And because of where we are, again, we have this amazing little circular economy that has grown around us. If you like, we were the last sort of bit of that jigsaw to make it happen. So there's now a small plant about 2 miles from the distillery, and that plant organises the felling and the chipping of local trees. So it's all softwood, and as they are felled, they are replanted. So it's a 30-year rotation crop. These trees, prior to us being there, have been hauled out of Ardnamurchan as timber, for furniture and stuff. But of course, that's heavy haulage, single track road, and you actually end up losing money by the time you've got them to the timber yard, to the destination. So we are now consuming 1 ton of locally sourced wood chip every 2 hours. It's delivered to the distillery by tractor and trailer, and that tractor then removes our draff, our byproducts, for animal feed. So the cows on the peninsula get to eat the draff, which is also covered in the potail, or the potail syrup, because it's evaporated. So we are probably one of the most, in terms of distilling, we're one of the most sort of tail-wagging dog distilleries out there. We have to make the right amount of whiskey to supply the right amount of cows. It's not about you, it's about the cows. But it's about the right amount. It's about 400,000 litres of alcohol per year, which equates, if we were to bottle it all, just to put it into perspective, that would be somewhere between 750,000 and 1 million bottles. So obviously you don't bottle it all at once, you mature it. And as we'll see as we go through some of the slides, we have got the things on, haven't we? Behind us. Yeah. You'll see how the distillery has grown from the initial production buildings, Warehouse 1, which went up at the beginning, and now how we're all up the hill with several more warehouses full of maturing Ardnamurchan. So that's the backstory. Everyone all right so far? Good. We now have to leap forward 10 years, which is amazing, because the first whiskey you're going to taste tonight is our 10th anniversary bottling, which we put together once we had enough 10-year-old casks in the autumn of last year. So production started end of July 2014, and the 10-year-old was bottled 1st of October, I think, give or take, 2024. All of our early production, up until March 2015, was unpeated malt, so unpeated barley. After that, and ever since, we've been running, roughly speaking, 50% unpeated, 50% peated every year. And this gives us, as a blending team, a much better flexibility in how we put each of the batches together. It's not uncommon. Some distilleries won't mention it, but a lot of distilleries, especially on the west coast of Scotland, will do heavily peated, lesser peated, unpeated, and it gives their blenders, as I say, this extra flexibility. So the 10-year-old is unpeated. It's been under a sort of virtual padlock for several years to make sure that the sales team don't get their mitts on it. What we discovered, 2 things we discovered when we started looking at these casks in 2024. First of all, the strength had come down considerably. And this is primarily because they're in the lower warehouse, number 1, the original warehouse. And this is absolutely the best place for long-term maturation. It's damp, it's cold, and the temperature is constant. So it varies between about 11 and 13 degrees. That's it, year round. Upstairs, just above it, it'll go from 0 to 30 in a year. And the more fluctuation in temperature, the more the spirits are going in and out of the wood, the more liquid you lose. And as the liquid comes down, the alcohol has to stay up. So upstairs we have high strength, low level, and downstairs we have low air strength and almost still full. And that's where they came from. So they've taken on this amazing kind of fruity, waxy character. But I'll let Connal talk you through the whiskey.
My goodness, you gonna let me speak?
Yeah.
Gents, I was going to say ladies and gents, but gents.
Rebecca was here earlier.
She was.
Yeah, to be fair. Good evening. My name is Connal. I'm the sales director, or basically Alex's lackey. I carry the bags, you know. But we're delighted to be back. I was just looking at the wall over there, and it was 2020, Friday the 13th, just before the wonderful COVID took place. It was genuinely the last tasting, I believe, whiskey tasting in Australia.
Yep.
Because we went from this tasting to the legendary Burrow Bar for a lock-in.
The original Burrow Bar.
The original Burrow Bar, and things got reasonably messy. There was, do you know Stuart Buchanan from Glendronach? Well, my everlasting memory of that evening was him on the bar taking his shirt off, drinking about 3 Negronis. So it was an interesting night. So yeah, that was the last time we were here. So it's quite crazy to be back. How things have changed. We didn't even have a whiskey on the market. We literally went home, we locked ourselves in the house, and then were let out summer 2020 to blend the first whiskey, which actually is on that barrel, which is pretty exciting. We don't often see that anymore, our first release. So yeah, the 10-year-old, it is an anniversary release. It's something that we're not looking to replicate. We had unpeated spirit to work with, and we wanted to use that. We wanted to bottle something turning double digits, turning 10. Please feel free to get into it. You all must be really thirsty. It's a Saturday, right? It is. I got my days all on.
You said it was Tuesday yesterday.
Yeah, it was Tuesday yesterday. Now it's Saturday. So yeah, it's 50% ABV, natural colour, unchill filtered, all that kind of good stuff. We don't do anything else. And it's unpeated spirit. It's a 50-50 split of ex-bourbon barrels and ex-bourbon barrels that have been matured for 9 years, and we took them out at 9, and we, what's called in the industry, re-wrapped them into champagne casks. Now, you wine drinkers out there will know that there is no such thing as a champagne cask. However, these are 100% Chardonnay barriques that we get from a very small vineyard in Limonil in the Champagne region, which is destined for champagne. So we get around anywhere between 12 and 24 casks a year, and that vineyard is called, the maker is called Paul Lenoir. And we do a Paul Lenoir release every year. So I think, I've been going over my head, you said 45 minutes from Fort William?
Yeah.
Nah, it's
I
impossible.
think it might have been, I got it I was straight to the ferry.
Yeah, but even then.
I was remarkably quick, and I probably broke the speed limit.
Yeah, I drink the speed limit all the time, and even still, it's not good. So just to give you a bit of an insight of what Ardnamurchan is and what it looks like, I've got a very dramatic 1-minute movie to show you of just a bit of the landscape and the road that Tom miraculously drove 45 minutes on.
I left after 9 o'clock and got there before 10. I don't know what to tell you. So if anyone's doubting me or saying this was the most beautiful driving away, I
Just that last picture, obviously the weather's always like that.
That's AI, by the way. This is it was filmed in one day, the only day that we had.
By Spider-Man. Now that last picture, does anyone here occasionally have a wee dram from blend, McLean's Nose?
Yep.
Great, I'm delighted. That was McLean's Nose, that was the top of the nose, looking down from Ben Here to the sea. So it's kind of shaped like a big nose. But anyway, that's another story. Where were we?
10-year-olds, how are you finding it?
Pretty fucking tasty.
Yeah, I'll take that. Pretty fucking tasty. It's always really good. Yeah, look, we only had unpeated spirit to work with. We didn't start peating our barley until 2015. So, yeah, I mean, I think when you're any distillery, you're in the first 6 months at least, you're experimenting with cap points, fermentation times, fill strength, you name it. We didn't even have our filling strength equipment properly installed for the first 2-3 months. So these casks were filled at anywhere between 63.5 and 67. So there was inconsistency there. So to try and find 60 barrels, 64 barrels is what this batch made up, about 19,000 bottles, 16,500 bottles.
No, it ended up being about 19.
Did it?
The strength was low.
Okay, 19,000 bottles. Yeah, we had to really select each and every cask. And we do that anyway, that's nothing new. So whether it's Maclean's Nose, Ardnamurchan single malt, the Sauterne release, every single cask that goes into that is passed by our blending team's noses. Now there's 6 of us that do it. We're not always there, but all of us are always there, but there's at least 3 to 4 of us there at any given time. So everything's done by nose. If we nose it and we find a fault, it simply goes to one side. We nose it and we find it is extreme in flavour, or it passes maybe not to go into the single malt or Maclean's Nose, it will go to a side for a single cask. It really is that simple, but it is quite a laborious process. It might sound like fun, but it is quite an intense process that can take many days to get a recipe correct. Yes, please.
What do you do to avoid fatigue?
For fatigue, yeah, it does come in. So we'll simply stop. To be honest, if 1 or 2 of us are feeling a bit just tired by it, we'll take breaks. We usually start early in the morning because that's when you're at your most, try and avoid things like espresso or a vindaloo the night before, But yeah, with a light breakfast, kick off at 9:30 and go really just liquid. Take breaks, go out for fresh air. That's what we try and do. But there is enough of us that if I'm not picking up a fault on something, usually Alex will, or Jenny who works with us, or Graham, or Carl, or Antonio. So there's a lot of us from various backgrounds in the booze industry, all found whiskey, and have been in there for a wee while now. So it's a good process. It's something that's worked well for us. We don't want to change it now because we feel it's worked well. The feedback's been great, so we want to continue doing it that way.
We also, because we're not tasting until we get to the final product stage, your nose, generally speaking, will keep going, as long as you're not tasting. I remember right back to the beginning when I was kind of being mentored by Charlie McLean, and I would go over to his offices, and we would look at Adelphi samples all day, just on the nose, and I was starting to flag, typically mid-morning, not really understanding what I was smelling. And he kept on reminding me that it's about your memories. So your nose is attached to this bit of your brain, which is also attached to your, I think it's called the hippocampus or something, right in the middle. That is where you hold your memories.
It's called the what?
Hippocampus. I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I remember that. Anyway, what you're trying to do is to get your nose to trigger a memory. Whenever you're tasting whiskey, wine, food, whatever, it's not about forcing it to say, this smells like strawberries. It's about trying to get it to trigger, I was having strawberries and cream on a nice summer's day, and that comes through as a memory, and it makes your nose, describe something better. So he always said, try and get those memories flowing, try and remember, force those memories, and it'll be a lot easier. But then, as we get to the end of the session, so we've got all of the casks that we want to put into the blend, or the vatting of a single malt. We then obviously have to look at that in detail to make sure it's right. All of us, apart from one, leave the room at that point, and the one person that remains lines up 3 or 4 samples, including the new batch and previous batches. We then come back in, and we have to try and determine which one is which. And if you get it wrong, you know you've got a reasonable level of consistency. So generally we do get it wrong now, which is a good sign, and it means that they're all more or less on the same kind of trajectory.
So yeah, moving on to whiskey 2. Actually, is there any questions on the 10-year-old before we do move on? Everyone's happy with that as a beginning, a first dram?
There's not very much of it though, is it, in Australia?
There's not very much of it in Australia, no. It's kind of disappeared. I might see if there's any more to the order on the way, since we had 19,000, I forgot that.
You've got a couple of mistakes.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I mean, we thought that was going to be enough, you know, to be honest. 16,000 is still quite a chunky batch for us, you know. Typically our single malts, our core single malt in Maclean Stills, we do them in batches of 25,000. So we thought this is going to be at least, everyone's going to have a half shot at getting it, you know. It retailed in the UK for, and I'm sorry about your taxes here, okay? They keep raising them in Scotland as well, but you guys take the cake. 65 pounds, you know, so it was a reasonable price for you know, a small distillery like ours putting out a 10-year-old at 50% ABV. So we were delighted with the outcome. But any other questions on that before we move on? It seems I was a little bit mean with the second pour, so you're getting double pours now.
Yeah, so this one under poured, so I'm just fixing it by over pouring it instead.
Yeah, that's
It
it.
smelled good, so I wanted more of it.
That's your good old RSA coming into play there. So, Adelphi. So we're back onto Adelphi, but it's an Adelphi Ardnamurchan. So you tell me, is that an independent bottling or is that just, is it? I don't know. I'm going to say yes.
It's the same logic as a cat and heads kill Karen.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I'm saying yes.
Look, I mean,
It is single cast. Did you have to buy the barrel off?
we do.
We do, yeah, we do.
To be honest, it's
It's a
more of
stupid
a,
process, but we do.
it's more of a tax movement, shall we say, than a...
Remember, you're on camera. You're on camera.
That's all right, I can mute certain parts.
Yeah, please edit that. No, just while we're talking about independence versus distillers, I mean, obviously, Ardnamurchan grew out of Adelphi, just as, what else, as Signatory and
Signatory and Edgeadara, Gordon MacPhail, Ben Roma.
Although I think, are we technically the first independent to build?
No.
Yeah,
Oh, to build, yes.
The other way around.
The Signatory bought Edgeadara,
I
right?
think we are.
Oh, there you
Anyway,
go.
the point I was going to make was that we've obviously been very, our business has been structured around the generosity of distillers over the years to at least open their doors wide enough for us to pop a few, you know, pound notes in and get the cars back. It hasn't always been easy. I mean, like any business, if your own single malt is doing well, it's better to sell it yourself rather than to sell it to someone else. Having said that, we've relied on them, and it was very much my belief that once Ardnamurchan was up and running, and we got through the first few years of sort of building the brand, the name, if you like, we should literally open our doors to other independent bottlers, especially the ones that we like and feel that have a very good selection process. So you will see, you've probably seen already, a number of Ardnamurchan independent bottlers.
Tried one a few weeks ago.
Who's that?
Single Cask Nation.
Oh yeah, very good. Oh gosh. Yeah, so, and it works both ways, because the other reason for building the distillery, it wasn't just about building stocks and having our own single malt brand. It was about building stocks in order to be able to trade with other distillers. So traditionally, in the Scotch whisky industry, especially when blends were king, you would swap. So distilleries would swap with each other in order to have enough stock, third-party stock, to blend. And especially when single malt is commanding quite high value, as it has been over the last few years, it's much better to go in with a like for like rather than a checkbook. So you can get one cask of something else for one cask of Ardnamurchan. And whatever you're buying in is basically your own cost of production, which is much more simple.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a single cask Ardnamurchan, Adelphi Ardnamurchan. We've done a few. We did one in 2020. We did a double cask for Mackenzie and Bruce. It was 2 sherry bats together. And that was straight after our single malt release. The reason we did that was because I didn't want the SNWS to be the first people to independently bottle Ardnamurchan. So yeah, I'm totally petty. I just couldn't have it. So I was like straight in with an Adelphi. Yeah, pretty petty.
Because they were pretty quick to get theirs out as well.
They were, and so that was the release trigger for them, right? Once they couldn't release anything until we released our single malt.
So
And then it was fair game after that.
we've been filling for them since 2015. So they're almost as old as us in terms of their stock.
Yeah. So yeah, petty, but I was glad to do it. But yeah, and they've got some cracking bottlings at the SNWS. I don't know how available it is here in Australia, but around the world, certainly in the US and things like that, it's a good way of getting single cask Ardnamurchan if it doesn't make it to your market, essentially. But this is unpeated, because it's from 2014, bourbon barrel. It's bottled at natural cask strength of 54.6. Age statement on there, 10 years old, exclusively bottled for, guess what? You guys, Australia. This is it, that's it. I don't know why we're here. I love this bottling because the Dancy Man, as you can see on the screen here, this has been Adelphi's logo since inception. It's a caricature of Sir William Gladstone. He was the Chancellor of the Exchequer back in the 1800s. He was also the Prime Minister. And the reason why we sort of adopted him was that he passed a law in the UK that put taxes on Scotch whisky after so when the cask's filled, they used to tax it then and then. So that didn't really encourage a distiller to mature their whiskey. They would try and do things to get out the door. They paid their taxes, they've already got money laying out. His argument was that doesn't encourage for good whiskey, it should be taxed when it's ready, when it's mature and ready to go into bottle. So we've kind of adopted the Dancy Man, we call him, because he's dancing over an ear of barley, celebrating the fact that we're going to get some good whiskey. And it's kind of morphed and modernised as time's gone on. So Johnny Walker have got the Walking Man, we've simply got the Dancy Man. However...
We can continue that story.
How?
So you'll see how he's progressed over the years, from the original Punch cartoon through to a simplified version. And then last year for our 30th anniversary, 2 years ago, we iconised him. That is a word, apparently. And the guy who iconised him is the same guy who iconised
Oh, he was, yeah, the Walking Man.
Walking Man before Diageo.
We've taken it one step further with this wee single cask bottling. And I'll pass the bottle around, have a wee look. It is quite hard to see, but you'll notice that the Dancy Man, please just pass it around. The Dancy Man is sporting, I don't know what the technical term for it is, but it's those hats, and I know you guys know him actually wears these hats, but the hats with the corks on them.
A sporran.
And what is it called?
A sporran.
A sporran, yeah, okay.
Nice try.
So yeah, so we gave, what's it called? Is it just, it's not called anything, is it? Just a hat with corks on it. Cork hat, there you go, cork hat. So yeah, we like to have a wee bit of fun. Take the piss a wee bit. So yeah, the Dancy Man has got corks on his hat and he is exclusively bottled. This is the second Adelphi Ardnamurchan single cask 10-year-old that we've ever released. The first one that we did was for Royal Mile Whiskey's Fringe, the Fringe bottling. That is simply the sister cask. The one we did for the Fringe was cask number 10, that's cask number 18. So it is simply the 18th cask ever filled at Ardnamurchan Distillery. So that is genuinely liquid history, and I have to walk away with the bottle myself. So I hope there is some spare somewhere in Australia. Yes, sir.
That would be a swagman's hat, wouldn't it, with the corks hanging off it?
It's called a what?
Like a swagman's hat.
Swagman, yeah, there you go. That sounds much more technical. Thank you. Cork hat, swagman's hat, we'll take it. We'll take it. Yeah. So yeah, really light, really grassy, really fruity, really clean. Yeah, lots going on.
So you said this was 54.6?
Natural strength, 54.6.
So this would have been filled at about 67, and that warehouse has done a bit. The only slight worry is that Of course, Scotch whisky by law has to be 40% or higher. And if it's gone down that much in 10 years, it will slow down. And there's also this lovely kind of magic that happens. As the strength comes down naturally, you tend to get a huge kind of explosion of tropical fruit. So around about the sort of mid to low 50s, that's all building. Which is good. It's okay.
Any questions on that bottle? Any tasting notes? Any nosing notes? Any thoughts? If not,
Really nice with touch of water.
touch of water. Yeah. Yeah. Don't batter it to death too much. I was going to say, well, you can always just add more whiskey, which we have. So actually, feel free. And Tom seems to be in a generous mood tonight. So we're
Yeah, please. Don't have to bowls because I've got about 8 to 10 tasting packs to fill. But you know, the people watching online, that's your whiskey they're drinking.
yeah.
So,
Sorry, guys.
So yeah, feel free to have second pours if you really want to.
I will. Kind of like very buttery. Yeah.
Buttery, creamy. Yeah.
It's almost popcorny. I like
Popcorn.
the salt, but like as if you're grabbing from the very bottom of
the kernels.
Yeah.
Here we go. This is better. That's good. Popcorn's really good.
Kernels.
It's interesting compared to the first one though, because the first one I found was almost reminded me of the lemon sort of custody type of
Yep.
whiskey, and then when I got to this one, it was hit in the face first of all, because it just was so the ABV was a bit higher. But
4.6 higher. You know, and obviously one's been a batch release, 64 casks. This is one. You know, so yeah, we were delighted to do this when we knew we were coming out here. We wanted to bottle something. We've actually bottled 2 casks for the visit. This being I think the highlight cask. That we're going to move on. We'll have a Blade Apple later on, which is also exclusively for the Australian market. So, yeah.
And the way I would describe, I've got a couple different categories of whiskey in my apartment. I've got, you know, cabinet whiskies. I've got at the moment kitchen table whiskies, and then I've got desk whiskies, which are the ones that tend to disappear the fastest. And this is a desk whiskey. That is very good.
Well, I mean, on that, Ardnamurchan is designed to be a whiskey drinker's whiskey. It's not for collecting. I mean, you'll see that
That's why this is on the table, man.
even when we started right at the beginning, we had to tell the story. You know, of course we've got these QR codes on every bottle, which you can scan and get everything you want. But back then, you didn't know that. So you needed some kind of visibility of what it was. So we very reluctantly gave you a box when we started. This box was one of the smelliest things ever.
Wait well to sell it. Well done, Alex. Yeah.
She's gone. After all these years, it has gone. So we had quite a few complaints, but in a kind of jovial way, about the fact that it was the first, as far as we believe, the first ever whiskey gift carton that was made out of fully recycled board. So not recyclable, but recycled. So it's basically the stuff you get on loo rolls. Anyway, it smelled like, as someone put it, nappies. And I said, well, you're lucky. How many bottles did you buy? And he said, oh, I managed to get 2. I said, well, just imagine when you have 25,000 of them in the warehouse. So anyway, we started with that, gave you a wee mat and all the rest of it. We then removed that after, 2.5, 3 years, something like that? 2.5 years, yeah. So we have no gift packaging at all. We don't see the point. If you're going to buy a bottle of whiskey, it's been designed for drinking, not for putting in.
we're wrapping them in paper for a period.
We did,
It's very nice.
but we got good feedback on that. It looks great, and I'm from a wine background originally, and nice Bordeaux and everything in the paper. When you've got more than one limited release on the go, you don't know what's in there, and the retailers were beginning to get a little bit confused. So
It was annoying in that respect.
All you've got to do is learn how to rewrap them. That's what I did.
Well, yeah, you try telling that to others.
Maybe I'm just a bit more dedicated than others.
Yeah, maybe.
in fairness, now that we're getting up to decent batch size on the limited editions as well, we may decide to bring them back in because we'll be able to,
And actually make them different for each batch.
But the
Fancy wooden box and charge 10 times as much.
Well, we can do that. Mahogany boxes and gold. Yeah. Today you'll be paying for this.
Something I do find really funny is you guys at the distillery gift shop, you sell one of those like neck warmers.
Yeah.
It's basically the exact same pattern as the paper that you wrap the bottles.
Yeah.
It's in
I
case you
bought one of
get,
those. Fantastic.
it's in case you get lost in Ardnamurchan, albeit about 200 years ago, because the place names are all historic.
Yeah.
That's great. But yeah, you put on the neck warmer and you feel like a bottle of Ardnamurchan.
I believe the technical term is snood.
Snoot?
Snood, yeah.
Isn't that the thing that the Scandinavians put on the
Snoot.
Close enough.
Yeah.
What's the dog called again?
Ben.
Ben. Was Ben wearing his?
Yes, and I ended up in about like 2 minutes into my distillery visit on the floor hugging the dog. It's very good.
He's a good dog, Ben. So, has anyone been to Ardnamurchan? Oh, sorry, question at the back.
Yeah, how did you choose the site? Like,
The site?
Like, of all the places in Scotland, why there?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Very good question. Moving on.
You take it.
So we had 7 sites we were looking at on the Ardnamurchan and the Morven peninsulas. So Morven is the other side of the loch, just there. And in fact, Morven has a distillery of its own now, Mackenzie. Have you had Mackenzie before?
Yep.
Yeah.
Good news, it's just about to be imported to the country and they're going to do a tasting with us hopefully in a few months. So
Good.
official import of Mackenzie is coming very soon.
So one of the things that we really wanted to do, because we were like the first of a kind of new wave, if you like, more or less, Wolfburn was about the same time too. Anyway, we were doing this kind of circular economy, remote area, and we knew it was quite possible that other people wanted to do a similar size distillery in a similar kind of remote location. So we did all of that early kind of pioneering work on how to get biomass boilers to produce enough steam and hold it and all the rest of it. And then we said, look, it's open, anyone, it's not open source, but you know what I mean. We kind of encourage people to take what we've done. And apart from anything else, the more that do it, the more engineers are going to be qualified to look after it and all the rest of it. So Mackenzie was the first to copy and paste. They took our whole engineering and architect team, put in biomass. They've got local forestry over there as well. So we are very close neighbours, both using a similar design. Of the 7 sites that we looked at, only one had enough consistent supply of water. That's what it came down to. You might assume that Ardnamurchan, being the most westerly point, gets all that weather off the Atlantic. It does rain a lot, but we do not have the holding logs that you get in central Scotland and on the east coast. So it rains, it comes straight down the hill and goes back into the sea loch at the bottom, by which stage it's salty and you can't use it. So the Glenmore River, which is the one next to us, has 3 holding logs, and that was the main reason we chose that site.
You tell them about Sky. Are we allowed to say that?
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Of course.
So while we were,
Do you want me to mute the recording?
Nah, that's all right.
while we were in the design process, the late Sir Ian Noble, who owned Ardnamurchan on Skye, it's like a hotel and Gaelic community, he rang up and he said, I've got a farm steading and I'm thinking of converting it into a distillery. Why don't you come and spend your money with me? And we'll build like a joint one together. So that, we looked at it and we just felt it wasn't ours. It was still a very beautiful site. Anyway, that site is now Torrevig. So that was where we were looking. He died before they built it. But yeah, the legacy continued.
I think if we're going to be true to our history, we would have built in Glasgow. Because if you go way back, Adelphi was formed as a distillery in Glasgow. It was producing malt and grain back in 1800s. We should have built one there. But I think you really wanted to produce that West Coast style.
No.
We had a bit of land. I mean, look at the West Coast of Scotland as distilleries go. From like Talisker down to Campbelltown and Islay. West is definitely the best. That's no disrespect to, I don't know.
Ronan's coming tomorrow.
Yeah, it's no disrespect.
Went to Marcus yesterday.
Yeah, look, Spaceside's great.
Speyside sandwich.
But like, I'm talking about East Coast, like, Glenkinchie or Kings Barnes, or they're great, but they're just West has definitely got something extra, I think.
Ironically, there was actually another site potential which I didn't know about until after we built this. So the business is split into 2 places. We've got the distillery in Ardnamurchan, and we've got Adelphi's HQ, where we do all the bottling for both companies and all the logistics, and have our offices, which is on our family farm, my family farm, in Fife. So we're about, give or take, half an hour north of Edinburgh, just over the River Forth. So that's been there since 2010, so before the distillery. And in about 2017, I was driving to work. I should really walk, it's only about a mile, but anyway, I was driving to work one day, and one of the biggest fields on the farm, I was kind of looking into it, because we grow most of our barley there at the distillery, about 65% of it. So I was just checking it was coming up from the side of the road, and then I spotted about 5 people in high-vis jackets digging a very big hole with a digger halfway up the field. That's very odd. So anyway, I asked my dad what was going on. So he said, oh, that's the Loch Katrine water pipe that's sprung a leak. I was going, Loch Katrine? So Loch Katrine is northwest of Glasgow, on completely the other side of the country. And the full name for the original Adelphi Distillery was Loch Katrine Adelphi Distillery, because Glasgow gets its water from Loch Katrine. And I suddenly put two together. We could have actually recreated the full Loch Katrine Adelphi Distillery on the farm, because it would have been the same water source. But anyway, no,
Ardnamurchan too.
Yeah, maybe.
No.
The pipe was put in. The pipe was put in to feed the steamship construction in the South Dockyard, which is just north of Edinburgh. So that's why it runs across Scotland.
Sorry, and so that pipe flows under the farm?
Yeah. It's a big old, well, leaky pipe.
So as you can see, this is a sort of more up-to-date version of the distillery. Everything is warehoused on site. Dunnage warehouse, traditional Dunnage warehouse. What I mean by that is earth floor, 3 casks high, sometimes 3 to 4 casks high, mainly 3. There is actually another 2 warehouses here and here, not in this shot, and we're probably going to build another 2. If we have to build more than that, Alex will simply sack me, because I'm not selling enough whiskey, basically. But yeah, I think it's really cool to be able to have full maturation on site. We take the cask, we don't do the bottling here. As Tom knows, it's a single track road. You know, we need to limit as much traffic as we can on that road, if you can call it a road. So yeah, we take the casks down to our Adelphi warehouse in Fife, which makes much more sense for logistics, picking up, exporting, etc., etc. So warehouse 1, this was the original warehouse, traditional Dunnage underneath, and as Alex said, we've got an upper level here, which is much hotter, even in the summer. In Scotland, it can get really toasty. So when you're pulling cask samples on a summer's day, we get about 3 of those a year. It's really, really warm up there. It really, really is. So we get increased levels of maturation. But yeah, I think you can all agree it's quite a beautiful part of Scotland. And just over, where is it? Where's my wee pointer? Oh, it's not working.
There it is.
Oh, is it?
You're off screen.
Oh, you can't. There. That's the island of Mull there. So we're sandwiched between the Isle of Skye and the Isle of Mull. We're this peninsula between those 2 islands. And to be honest, we're more remote than the islands, which sounds ridiculous. But Skye, you've got like a supermarket, you know. In Mull, you've got a supermarket. There ain't no supermarket in Ardnamurchan. It's home to about 382 people. So it really is in the middle of nowhere.
There's an art gallery though.
There's an art gallery, yeah. There's a few Airbnbs, and around here, so not this house, but round about here, you've got Mr. Rowan Atkinson, aka Mr. Bean, who lives more often than not these days. Actually, he's probably there about 6 months a year now.
Has he got a cask?
He doesn't drink whiskey. He's not even popped in to say hello. He does the old wave, you know, when you're on.
Does he get there
Armchair
faster than you do?
No, well, not as fast as Tom. But he doesn't even drive any fancy cars. He's in an X90 and a Volvo. Very boring.
Yeah, he sold it a few years ago.
He's not smashing.
He wrote the thing on.
He smashed it, yeah.
He crashed it multiple times and still managed to sell it for a profit.
I'll never forget, this is a few years ago, this is COVID times, when we were blending. We were down at the Mull ferry waiting to get the ferry in. My daughter at that time would have been 3-4 years old.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. 2020? Yeah. And we were down at the water waiting for the ferry to come. And there was another wee girl there that they were playing together just by the water. And I was chatting away to this lovely lady. We were just having a chat with, what you're doing. I'm just going over to get my shopping, da-da-da-da. Because that's what people in Ardnamurchan do to get their groceries. They get the ferry to Mull to get their shopping. So anyway, the ferry comes, we get back into the car, I'm putting my daughter in the car seat, and I say cheerio to the lady who's getting her daughter in the car seat, and there's a guy in the car. It was bloody Rowan, wasn't it? And that's his daughter. I didn't think he had a daughter so young.
Oh, his second marriage.
Yeah, he did remarry, yeah. And apparently,
James Lancaster's.
that's right, yeah, Acasters, that's right.
If you ever want to see something funny.
Yeah, because he does a skit on that, right? Yeah. Okay, anyway, I'm going down the rabbit hole. So yeah, well, let's move on to whiskey 3. Saltern cask, yeah.
So,
This sounds good.
next show. And one of the first batches we got was from a cooperage in Bordeaux, who sold us some Sauterne casks. I'm sure most of you know what Sauterne is, but if you don't, it is a sweet wine produced in the Bordeaux region of France. And it's that, unlike here where you've got a lot of sun and you can air dry grapes, the sweetness is coming from noble rot in Sauterne. So the grapes are just left on the vines for longer, they go rotten, and that concentrates the sweetness of sugar, if you like. So typically a Sauterne cask or a barrel that's had Sauterne wine aging in it will give you a sweeter flavour. However, it is one of those things that when we've been selecting Adelphis over the years or putting another batch of Ardnamurchan together, we always want our whiskies to be drinkable. We want you to, of course responsibly, but we want you to go, oh, I quite like that, I'm going to have another sip. And as you said, was it your desktop? No,
Desk whiskies.
Desk whiskies tend to go down quite quickly. That's where we want to be. We want to be on Tom's desk, basically.
It's gold standard. What can I tell you?
And it can get quite hard when you get into this kind of profile of wood management. It sometimes gets a bit too sweet, a bit too cloying. So you try it and you go, oh, that's really interesting. But then you put it to one side and you go and try something else. We are very lucky with our Ardnamurchan that we have this inherent maritime style. So we have that saltiness coming from the air, from the sea, from our water, all the rest of it. And that saltiness cuts through the sweetness we find in the Sauterne cask and the Madeira casks, which we've just launched another batch of. What else have we done recently?
Mexico?
Not quite yet.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
Can you do some Fino?
We do have Fino.
We've got Fino, we've got Palatado and
Amontillado?
I saw the
Manzanilla.
Manzanilla.
I have photos of couple of photographs.
So I think they're going to do a really good job. They kind of fit our sort of style, if you like.
So is this a finish?
So this is a 2-year and a wee bit finish, basically.
It's an 8-year-old whiskey. It's 6 years in bourbon, unpeated distillate, and about just under 2.5 years in Sauternes, which arguably could be. I would like to know the opinion on this because it's something that there's no official legislation on. First of all, when does the finish become a finish?
Yeah.
I believe.
And it's finished.
Yeah, 3 months they say is the minimum. I would say to call it a finish. But when does the finish become a secondary maturation?
12 months, 2 years.
2 years? There's no official answer on this. You can't be wrong. But I would agree. I think it's anything sort of. Well, after that 2-year mark, you're sort of going, well, this is the secondary. And I
would become its own,
Yeah.
If it could be its own whiskey for age 3 years.
Well, then that would be 3.
Yeah, that'd be 3. Yeah.
On the way then, maybe halfway.
Well, yeah, but it
true.
It should just be a percentage of the time spent in cask.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just or percentage of time, but I still think it's an interesting subject. I think 6 years in ex-bourbon casks and then 2.5, or just under 2.5 in Sauternes. We were going to bottle this as a 7-year-old, just wasn't ready. It really wasn't ready, and then that extra year really did wonders for it. I think it's quite decadent. It's quite luscious. It's definitely something people like to have, that sort of after dinner dram. They usually gravitate to a sherry cask matured whiskey. I think this would also fit the bill as something to have after dinner or out by a fire or something like that. I think it's pretty rock star, to be honest. I'm really happy with it.
It's quite open tonight. It's got a whole new. It's probably the heat in this lovely country. It's got a kind of peach liqueur thing going on, which I haven't had before.
Peachy. It's really
Have you done a cognac or any of the other French spirits like those?
Cognac?
Yeah.
No, we haven't got any cognac
We
casks.
haven't. We are, apart from the Paul Londois, the so-called champagne, the Chardonnay, they're the only French oak casks that we do at the moment. It's a little bit trickier to work with, French oak. It tends to be tighter grain.
Is the Sauternes American?
Sauternes American. Yeah. I'm not against using it, but you've got to be a bit more careful with it. And we've got other things, obviously we've got Sauternes Madeira, which we've released before. We've got port, and as I said, we've just bought some more port casks. What else we got?
I don't know.
Christmas spirit.
Christmas spirit casks. No.
I keep at them to try and buy some Mizanala casks, but they're absolutely, they're extortionate.
I'm not convinced that it's what we need either, because
I would just like to do one.
I know, but they leak.
What does Ardnamurchan taste like in Mizanala? No?
Would you do a painted one?
Peter Mizanara.
Nah, well, we would buy it. I wouldn't buy one. We would buy.
So just while we're on the subject of the price of casks, when I started buying bourbon casks in 2013, ahead of our first distillate in 2014, they were $75 US landed in Scotland from Kentucky. So you typically get 210 bourbon barrels in a container. So that was, that's what we paid then. Last year, at its height, we were paying £275 per bourbon barrel. It has come down very slightly, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere near where it was, because not enough people are drinking bourbon, quite simply. So there's been less disgorged, so there are fewer casks available to a growing number of distilleries around the world.
Hear that, guys? When this tasting's over, go out in front and buy some Jack Daniels.
Certainly do not do that.
Drink it, you just have to buy it.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's everything kind of works, swings and roundabouts, all the rest of it. Sherry casks have also gone through the roof. We do need, as an industry, we need to be a bit more creative, and I'm not saying that we need to go down 100% sort of STR route, shaved, toasted and recharred. I think that's one potential. We haven't done it because I don't think it fits our profile. I think we need to be very careful about straight wine casks, so what we call table wine, non-fortified, because there are things in that wood which haven't been removed by the alcohol, and I don't think they necessarily go with whiskey, but sometimes they do work, so it's one of those things, you're just going to play around with it. Where I think it is a good thing for Scotland and for the overall industry is the rise of, once again, our own cooperages. So 5 or 10 years ago, there was really only one privately owned cooperage left in Scotland, possibly two. There was one in Keith as well. And then there were a couple of big ones owned by Diageo and the likes. We've now got several new cooperages, one in particular called Oakwood, which is also in Keith. That started off with 4 coopers about 5 years ago. It now employs about 200 people, of which 70% are training to be coopers, which is a really good sign for the future. And unfortunately, they've just been bought by the French, who tend to swoop in and buy anyone who makes casks. But they're putting a lot of money into it, which is great for the community and jobs.
It's a really beautiful segue you've just done there.
Is it?
I don't know if you meant to do it.
Into
The next whiskey.
which is
French. Blair Apple.
right.
Yep. So this Blair Apple cask is a refill
Yes.
bourbon. It's a refill bourbon barrel. I think I put first fill on the label, which is a mistake.
It's in the press.
But it has new ends. So some of the casks that we've been getting from Diageo are, especially like the Blair Apples, Dal Ewins, some Kalina, we're getting these hogsheads, no, they're hogsheads, sorry. So they're refill woods, and they stick on new ends, which gives it a bit of a lift to the spirit. So it's not as intense as a first fill bourbon cask. It's got the balance of the refill wood, which lets the spirit sing, but it also gives you that lovely maturation from the new ends. So that's what this is, what you're about to have, is this Blair Apple. Now we've actually started getting. Did we start getting some for Ardnamurchan? Did you start ordering?
Yeah, I mean, over the years, it's been really interesting. We've been monitoring. Obviously, when we buy Adelphi casks, 9 times out of 10, we don't know what the cask is going to look like. We're simply buying the sample. And when that comes into the warehouse, I'll have a look at the cask, check it out. Quite often, some of the best bourbon casks, in fact, most of the best bourbon casks, American oak hogsheads that previously had bourbon, are these remade hoggies. Normally from Diageo, they've got quite a good way of doing it. And typically what you do is you leave the staves as they are, so they're just refill staves. But as Connal said, the new ends, it's brand new, it's virgin oak, and it's toasted. So by toasting it, it's just like scrubbing your face. It opens the pores, a bit of heat, and that allows the whiskey and the wood to interact better and more quickly.
Just to confirm, does everyone know what a hogshead is? We're just talking in total speak here, but a hogshead is a 250 litre cask, as opposed to a 200 litre barrel. So it's a little bit extra there.
Again, typically it was a Scottish style. Its full name is a dump hogshead. And before containerization, most of our wood came over from America in staves, and it was rebuilt in Scotland by the Coopers. So they would take 3 barrels worth of staves, and they would make 2 hogsheads. So that's 600 into whatever that is, 500, give or take. They said it was because it was easier to roll the cask, because you didn't have to bend down further to the barrel. I'm not sure that's actually correct or not, but it does seem to be about the right size of cask to get the best balance in a long maturation time.
So what's happening in America in the potential change of reuse of casks?
Yeah,
So
it's contention, isn't it?
That keeps on sort of appearing and disappearing again. There have been a few new laws passed for American whiskey, or single malt whiskey, which don't really affect us, as far as I can see.
It's referring to bourbon.
No, I know. I don't think it's reappeared recently, has it? That
I saw something
discussion
last year where it's
Yeah.
come up in discussion again, and
Yeah.
that was just, I don't know if it went any further.
I mean, bourbon relies on the fact it tastes like bourbon, it tastes like oak. And I think if they went down that refill, it might get a few slightly more discerning consumers, but it would probably lose 90% of its existing
charm.
base. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a risk.
Yeah, but if you put it in the canned drinks,
Well, that's true.
Any questions on the Salterns or the plain apple?
It's really oily. isn't it?
it's also pretty damn good.
It's lovely oily.
So it's 13 years old, 55.5. It's sold 2011, bottle 2024, 251 bottles.
Technically not something that we should be able to get because it is a Whiskey and Dreams exclusive.
It was bought for Whiskey and Dreams, which didn't happen, but yes,
It's a unicorn whiskey.
it's a unicorn,
There
yeah.
you go. But we'll get something. I think while I was at the distillery, I was mistakenly given, I think, about 3 driver's drams of. I left absolutely loaded with driver's drams. I had about 3 of the Sauternes casks.
We might have to have words with the
Oh, I'm going to have to speak to Karen, yeah, she's sacked.
There were 2 of us there. So. But it was
2 months. So I think I'm going to be there in 2 months.
Oh, you are?
So I think you just hold off hiring her for 2 months.
They'll be done there by the time we get there. No, sadly, I think. Do we know if Karen's going or not?
She's talking about it.
Yeah. She's the one who moved to
She's
Glasgow.
want to move closer to her grandchildren, but yeah, she's great. But don't worry, we've got a great team there.
Yeah, they're all very good.
They'll look after you. Just, when are you going?
10th of May.
Nice. Cool. Okay, cool.
Nice, probably the best time to
Good
go.
time, just pre-midgie. Pre-midgie season. Talking about midgies,
Yes.
Oh boy.
does everyone know what a midgie is? They're terrible bloody things. We released a whiskey last year, and it was Graham Mackay, my sales team. He had an idea that we should pay homage to the wildlife in Ardnamurchan. Now, Ardnamurchan, Scotland doesn't have what you guys have. You've completed it when it comes to like mental creatures. You've got an A+, right? You've got everything. In the water, in the bush, anywhere, you guys have got it all. Scotland doesn't have anything really that exciting. We've got deer, we've got eagles, we've got otters, we've got whatever.
We've got a snake.
Oh, we've got some snakes. Adders,
You got
yeah.
lynxes. Yeah, you got lynxes. 3 of them.
Oh, we've got lynxes, yeah, apparently.
Loch Ness.
Loch Ness Monster. Alright, okay, we've got some cool shit. But you guys have got way better stuff than
You've got
us.
Scotsmen.
Yeah, they're animals in their own right. So you can't pay homage to the deer because Dalmore have got that and they're doing very well with that. You can't do eagles because Arden have got that on their balls, and you're kind of scratching your head. Well, you can't really bottle a whiskey and call it the Otter. No one's going to know what that's all about.
Or like the salmon or something.
Or the salmon. Yeah.
Who wants a fishy whiskey?
So Graham just said, well, why don't we bottle it for something that's very famous for the West Coast, something that we don't really talk about, and that is the Midgie. And we actually did. We went a little ahead with this idea, and we simply called it the Midgie. We bottled it right at the end of May, so just when the Midgies are coming out into season. We even went one step further. We collaborated with an insect repellent called Smidge. They are the #1 insect repellent in the whole of the UK and Europe. Had a lot of fun with it. We bottled it only for the UK market because, let's be honest, that's quite niche and also a bit weird. However, the demand for it has been huge. So we are going to, when we get home, by the way, we need to blend the next Midgie, and the next Midgie is going to be a worldwide release. And we were just talking about port casks. We need to have a look at them and see if we can incorporate that into them. You can edit that out.
And actually, while we were talking about editing out,
What did I say?
No. So
Maybe do extra work, man.
the blending team, as we talked about earlier, we get together, we do these batches. The Midgie was designed to be the experimental Ardnamurchan. Not so much that we didn't know what it would taste like, but we wanted to play around with all of the other casks, the Sauterne, the Madeira, and see how they actually blended together. Not all of them worked, not all of the different blend profiles, but that's what the Midgie is going to be going forward. It'll be our kind of platform for trying new things. And
How about a Scottish beer cask?
beer, it's been done.
Sure, it's done.
It has been done.
Has been done.
Yeah.
It's not something I would.
Do a cask swap, finish them down.
Yeah, look, there's plenty of decent. It's something we should probably do just to rule out, if anything, to be honest, because we have been approached. I know the team quite well at Black Isle Brewery, which is outside just where I'm from in Inverness. But yeah, I don't know. Have you ever tried a beer cask whiskey that you thought, wow?
The E-Power Chichibu.
Oh.
Yes. It's true that does amazing IPA casks. What is that?
Yeah, but that's Ichiro and Chichibu, so that's not a fair comparison. Boo!
You could probably, ask him very nicely, Mr.
Well, we did.
Well, when we were out there a couple of years ago, I wasn't very subtle. Yeah, he kind of said maybe, and then I didn't hear back.
To be honest, I think if we are going to go down the Mizunara route, my preference would be for a refill, the one that's already had whiskey in it, rather than the first time. I think that would work better for us. So yeah, we'll keep that.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. The next time we buy one, we'll get a Chichibu. We'll get a cask.
Talking about that, you've got the Glover on sale tonight, right?
I've got it on pre-sale, correct.
Cool.
And I've got the dregs of the batch 4 in my bag.
For those of you who don't know what Glover is a blending project that Alex set up in 2015, so 10 years ago. This is the 10th anniversary. There will be a 10th anniversary Glover. Essentially, it was to honour a guy called Thomas Blake Glover, a Scotsman that moved to Japan and started companies like Mitsubishi, etc., etc. The first Glover contained Hanyu, Longmorn and Glengarry. It was a 22-year-old and it was absolutely sublime. Obviously, we don't have regular supply of Hanyu, so we had to diversify. So more recently it's been Chichibu, which has been wonderful to be able to still maintain that relationship with Ichiro and Yumi and the team. The new batch of Glover 8, is a 8-year-old peated Chichibu and a 10-year-old unpeated Ardnamurchan. And I honestly think one of the best we've done in a very, very long time.
Okay.
So it's genuinely spectacular, if I do say so myself. But yeah, 8-year-old Chichibu, 10-year-old Ardnamurchan, natural cask strength. If you like your bourbon cask matured stuff, that's your go-to. Yes.
Is it a half split?
It's a cask of each.
Okay. I'll be back with you.
Did you teaspoon it with anything else to send it?
Oh yeah, what did we
well remembered.
Well remembered. What did we teaspoon it with?
To be honest, I'm less particular nowadays. So back when we were putting this whole thing together, so I think the first one was 2016 by the time we got it out. It was just about the time that Scotch whisky laws tightened because we got geographical indication status for single malt, so GI status. And that meant that everything for single malt had to happen in Scotland. So here I was, knowing that I couldn't, because this wasn't Scotch whisky, I couldn't blend it in Scotland. The law had already told me I would have to do it somewhere else. So we had a tank of, small tank of Hanyu and a small tank of Longmorn. Yeah, it was Longmorn.
28 years old.
What?
The Longmorn.
Not 22.
No, the Hanyu. No, the.
No, I think it was. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We had one of each, and the plan was to pop them in the van, drive them down to England to our friends in Norfolk, who were the only distillery that we knew in England at the time. They would tip them together, we'd drive back with one tank and bottle it, because we were allowed to bottle it and so on. So here were the tanks sitting in the warehouse, and we had our first Scotch whisky verification visit the day before, obviously to make sure we were complying with GI status. And Gordon, who's our ops director, took them around. He's very used to doing this, and he knows exactly what to show them and what not to show them.
You can edit that bit as well.
Anyway, everything was getting a nice big green tip, and one of them said, "Oh, what's in the tanks over there?" And Gordon said, "Oh, you don't need to worry about that. That's not for single malt Scotch." And they said, "What is it?" And he said, "Well, you've got a tank of Longmorn and you've got a tank of Japanese whiskey." And they said, "Longmorn is single malt, isn't it?" And he said, "Yeah, at the moment it is, yeah, but it's going to be blended, and we've got to do it in England." And they went, "Okay, so you can't do it." And he went, "Why?" And he said, "Well, under the new GI status, you are not permitted to take single malt out of Scotland in anything other than a bottle fully labelled for sale."
Oh, wow.
So that tank will be illegal when it crosses the border. So he reported this to me.
And you know, those inspectors were never seen again.
As a well. No. So he reported this to me, and I literally just about cried in my suit. I was having lunch at the time. Because I'd been through, I don't know, 10, 12 months of wrangling with the SWA about how we could do this project. And then I went, "Oh, hang on a second." And I went down, the inspectors were still there. And I said to them, "So we're just talking single malt Scotch here, you know, in terms of the new GI status." And they went, yeah, single malt, very important. I said, "So blended malt's not part of the issue." They went, "No, blended malt's fine." So I said, "Gordon, chuck a bottle of that Mackenzie in the bottle."
Can you teaspoon them with each other?
No, no, we couldn't. It has to be another Scotch. At that point, it had to be. So yeah, over the years, depending on the character that we were bringing to life, whether it was with India or other fusions, sometimes we'd actually made a distinct purpose of what we were using as a teaspoon, some kind of homage. But nowadays, it's pretty much, you know, whatever bottle they can find goes in there.
I think it was liquid.
No, it's Glengarry. It was a teaspoon.
What? For this one? No, for the
for this one.
the new glover. The new glover.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Fairly sure it was liquid.
Yeah, it was. Well, actually,
find out.
The Amrit one that we did, the Indian, so the EK, so that was named after my great-great-grandfather, who was a very reluctant viceroy of India back in the day in the 1800s. He didn't want to go at all, he didn't really think about those kind of things. So his nickname at the end of his tenure was the Walking Viceroy, because he just got out and about. He didn't want to have any kind of ceremonies and stuff. But when he was asked by Queen Victoria to go and do that, he was living, so he was renting at the time, Easter Elpy's house, which, if you don't know, it's where Macallan is. So it's Macallan, it's the house on the label for Macallan. So that was his house in 1870 odd. He lived there, got a telegram from the Queen saying, "You're off to India." He sent the messenger back and said, "No, I'm not." And he came back following me and said, yes, you are. So the story goes. But because of that connection, that very tenuous connection, that one did get the bottle of Macallan dumped in it to pay tribute to him. But, yeah.
Is that, do you still own the house? Or?
No.
Connal?
No. Right, okay, where have we got to?
We're on some sort of sherry cask release.
Oh, should we? I think we should swap these, unless you've already tried.
Yeah, well we can do.
Oh, it's too late now.
Is it? All right.
Yeah, okay.
Well, the last one's unbeaten.
Well, we can pick up the sixth glass if we want.
It's fine. No, we'll just do it in the order.
If you've already finished your fifth glass, have fun.
So our sherry cask release, second time we've done this, we're going to try and make it a yearly release, price it pretty sharply. It's about £65-ish, 60 to 65 in the UK. I don't know what it is here. Full maturation in sherry, Oloroso and PX, Pedro Jimenez, 50% ABV, and it's about a 60-40 split of unpeated to peated spirit, and it is a 70 to 30 split Oloroso to PX. So 30% PX, 70% Oloroso. Yeah, not a finish, full maturation. For me, it's got incredible umami, savoury notes, smoked meats, barbecue meats, things like that. Lots of cloves. But it looks like a sherry bomb. I mean, the colour of it does look like that, but I think it has got more balance than that. I don't think it's very clean. I wouldn't say there's any sulphur here. I think, dare I say it responsibly for the camera, it's a sessionable sherry cask matured whiskey, and not very old.
Second batch.
Second batch, yeah. So we did one in 2023 for the first time. This is 2024's release.
I think the most important part for us, given that Ardnamurchan is designed to produce a fairly unique flavour, and we like that flavour. We don't want to disguise it in any way. When you're getting into this kind of territory of activity in your casks, I mean, these are really active sherry casks, you need to make sure that your DNA is still shining through. And it does. It really does, even with this.
That's the saline quality of our spirit is definitely there. And just on saline quality, I think you can all agree that Ardnamurchan has got a saline to it. It has got salinity. Lots of people ask, so where does it come from? The answer is, we don't know. We're there with a Himalayan pink salt shaker like that. Well, this is not my theory, this is your theory, which I always just copy. But I like it, because I think it's the only way that we can actually say where the salt comes from. And the theory goes, reduction water. And what I mean by that is, not production water, because obviously that's stripped when you're distilling, but when you take your spirit from 70% ABV through to the warehouse, it's not 70%, you're reducing it down to 63.5. We're using the water that comes down from the hill, PT water. Now, you've been at Ardnamurchan. If you run a bath in Ardnamurchan, it's going to be tainted, as in it's going to have a brown tinge to it, and that's just because it's coming through the peat bogs. There's nothing wrong with the water. It's great. It's beautiful.
It's amazing water.
Good for your skin.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Actually, we're going to drink as well.
But it's not going to look like that, right? So if I pour a glass of water in Ardnamurchan and line it up against that, a glass from New York, Glasgow, Munich, you will definitely be able to taste the difference in those waters, right? We don't talk about water enough, I don't think. So the argument that we have is, when you're reducing your spirit from 70 to 63.5, that's quite a large percentage. And we believe, potentially, not proven, we don't want to prove it, that might be where that salinity factor comes from in Ardnamurchan.
I think it's a combination of that and the fact that the warehouse design, so that traditional Dunwich style of warehouse, is the most welcoming to the atmosphere. So we are encouraging whatever's out there to come in. And I mean, literally, if a storm gets up in Ardnamurchan, your car is covered in salt. You can see it, it's pretty obvious. So that is in the air, and it's going around, and it will get into the warehouses, it will get into the casks.
You're not going to say the T word, are you?
T word. The terroir. No.
Do you guys use rainwater in your production?
Do we collect it?
Yeah.
We don't really need to. What we do to be as sort of good on the river as possible, because there's plenty of water in the river most of the year anyway. So the normal cycle is it comes off about a mile up the road, up the track from the distillery, comes down a big pipe, sits in a big holding tank, and then we draw it down. It goes through the condensers, it gets really hot, goes out into the cooling pond, gets put back to the river temperature, goes back into the river. But it's meanwhile bypassed half a mile of river. So you could say, well, maybe that is having an effect. So what we did in about 2016, we put in a recycling system. So it's like a kind of modern, small-scale cooling tower system. And it just basically condensing water gets recycled round and round and round through the cooling tower. Very occasionally you top it up. I mean, you're talking a dribble rather than thousands of gallons. So that's our kind of equivalent of rainwater collection, if you like. But you don't, it's not like out here or New Zealand where it's so important to collect rainwater. We get plenty of it. Yeah.
Whoa. Sorry, I'm on 6 now.
Oh yeah. It's chocolatey.
That's a word. That's it in a word. Chocolate.
Did anyone get the, this is, yeah it is. Did anyone get the bottling we did last year for the Whiskey Club? Right. So that was quite a tricky, I don't know if you know how the Whiskey Club worked, but if you don't, it's basically, we used to have something in the UK when I was little called Reader's Digest. And if you didn't say no, a magazine or a tape or something would turn up on your doorstep once a month. The Whiskey Club is similar in that you join the club and you get a bottle of whiskey once a month, I think. Give or take. Yeah. If you don't subscribe. So they very kindly asked us to do their 10th anniversary bottling last year. But they also gave us a set of criteria which was slightly harder than,
Quite tricky, yeah.
It was quite tricky. Because we like doing what we do for Ardnamurchan. We know it's the style we like. They said, please can we have just sherry and just unpeated.
I know they're not.
Well, they obviously do. So we had to put together a 22,000 bottle batch of unpeated Ardnamurchan, all in sherry. And this would have been one of them, because it was all part of that 2018, 2019 stock.
Bearing in mind, I don't know what it says on your tasting map. It says a hilarious 55%.
Yeah.
It's definitely not that. Because I plucked that in the cask myself before I came out here. It'll be probably sitting at around 59 to 60%.
Are you sure that's unpeated?
No, I'm not.
I think that's
I can taste rubber, so.
I don't think it's unpeated,
I think that's peated.
but it's pretty good though.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and say.
Maybe that's why this one didn't end up in the Whiskey Club. It's pretty good though.
Yeah, chocolate though. Definitely chocolate. It's really chocolate.
Do a fair bottling.
I'd love to do a whiskey fair bottling, but it would have to be less than 200 bottles and less than 100 bottles, and probably about 50. So if you want to...
Wow, you went down quite quickly there. It have to be less than 200 bottles last one. Actually, I need 3 bottles.
Look, I will happily do another Ardnamurchan cask, but please can it be just like...
So we'll do an octave.
I'm down.
We could do an octave. That'll get you about 60.
Look, I'm okay. I'll pay that myself.
That is definitely good.
It's definitely, yeah.
It's pretty good though.
It's also really, really salty.
Salty, chocolatey.
So what are the specs of the last one I made?
We're not sure. We're trying to work it out.
This is
It says unpeated on the label. It says it's 55% of the label.
this is a malt vinegar on your chips sort of whiskey.
Yeah.
Balsamic, not malt vinegar.
Did you go?
That's good.
Huge texture.
I think it was aged in the balsamic casks.
Yeah. Look, hey, it's pretty good.
Interesting, I asked Connal, because that's the first time I've seen that. I asked him this evening when they were setting up, was it standard barley or golden promise? And he said it was standard. For those of you who don't know, we do experiment with our barley varietals as well, just a little bit. So obviously we talked about casks. Barley is another huge flavour ingredient in terms of how you can change flavour in Scotch. Typically the industry will work with maybe 3 or 4 similar barley varietals over a period of time. They then outlive their potential in terms of their yield, their quality. It's harder to grow them, and that probably happens over a 10 to 15 year cycle, give or take. And then new varietals come in. So the only change in mainstream varietal that we've had at Ardnamurchan in our 10 years of production was from Concerto in 2017 to Laureate, which is the current one. Laureate is beginning to go through its cycle, so we may move, and we have started trialling things like Sassy, Diablo, other stuff as our main malt. On top of that, every year we have tried to fill, since 2018, we've tried to distill at least 1 week's worth of Golden Promise. So Golden Promise was the favoured malt back in the 1960s and the 70s. It was pretty much where Mackenzie made its name in terms of that big, rich, oily character. Of all the malts that have come and gone in Scotch whisky terms, it was the one that was probably the most famous. And to that extent, it is still growing in limited amounts in Scotland. But we are talking a massive loss of yield on the field and a massive loss of yield on the stills. And it's more expensive. So just to give you an idea, we run at around 410 litres of alcohol per tonne of barley, tonne of malt, in terms of our efficiency. When Golden Promise comes in, we dropped about 370. And 2 years ago, well about 18 months ago, we did an even more experimental week with some heritage barley called Chevalier. So Chevalier was originally grown in England in the 1300s and has been sort of kept going, but not in huge quantities. Golden Promise is known to be oily, very oily. Chevalier is expected to be about 10 times oilier than Golden Promise.
So, guys, an octave of that, the oak barrel fat?
That's 2 years ago.
Yeah, where do you set the price of a bottle?
Yeah, how much is it?
Look, we could potentially do a Golden Promise up to. We have.
Whoa, you're
yes.
That's on camera.
That is about as likely as your man driving 45 minutes.
So actually,
I did say potentially. Yeah, but look, it's.
You have to pay for it, so that's the problem.
Has anyone tried an Ardnamurchan Golden Promise yet?
no.
So
Is it made out here?
I don't know if it has. We did a few casts in the UK last year.
Yeah, we done one for the Whisky Exchange, we done for Good Spirits in Glasgow.
Has anyone had McLean Bruce, the new one?
Yep.
The new one, second batch?
Yeah, that had one
Yeah,
bat.
so that was half Golden Promise.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does work. It makes it a lot earlier.
We'll get a cask out to market. If it's an octave or not, but no.
It'll be in the store. If it gets to Australia, it'll be in the store.
Yeah, cool man.
Business
So,
table.
I might have missed it, but the malting, is that all, like, how do you go through malting?
Yeah, good question. So we got a picture of the distillery.
Any questions?
Any questions?
What do you want?
A picture of the distillery.
Oh God, I've got to go all the way back.
So where's your milk
Stop.
from?
Oh, there. Red pointer.
What do you want? The malt or?
This is our malting. We built it as part of the original design because I really wanted to have a small proportion of floor malting in-house. But I'm yet to get enough money together to commission it.
It's full of hoodies at the moment.
Yeah, it's our shop stock. No, the other reason we built it was because it is small. It's going to be maybe a 4-ton floor maximum. So 1 ton on each segment, 4 segments. But we wanted to try and create a modern floor malting, which sounds really stupid. So the floor, to me, is the best traditional design. But we have obviously a biomass boiler. You can see smoking away there. That produces a lot of residual heat. And most of that residual heat is currently being used to heat the houses and the visitor centre. But there's still quite a lot left.
Yeah, okay.
So the kiln currently has a large radiator in it, sitting horizontally across it. That is, when we switch the valve on there to the residual heat from the boiler, that cranks up to pretty big heat. So that will be our drying source. So it'll be free drying source, basically free heat. And then in terms of the peat, we don't want to have to use too much peat because it's obviously quite a rare commodity. So the idea being that we'll put in a small little, like a wood burner, outside the building with pipes going into the through the radiator into the floor.
Yeah.
And then we'll just like 4 or 5 blocks of heat in there.
And what does Ardnamurchan peated
I know.
whiskey taste like?
So that's the future.
Who knows?
My intention is that we'll grow, because we grow a lot of our barley anyway, we'll designate one field or one part of the estate will be for heritage or special crops.
Yeah.
Problem stuff like that. And that's the stuff we'll take up and do ourselves. Everything else.
Ardnamurchan, right?
So currently at the moment, currently it's all the barley from the farm is toll malted, so we retain its what's the word? Unique, is our barley, is our malt, doesn't get mixed in.
And we spec it accordingly.
Yeah. So that gets malted in Alloa on the way up the road, and then the remaining 40-odd%, 35 to 40%, we buy in a contract from Inverness. So that's Black Isle. It's all Scottish. The only time we put non-Scottish barley through was when we did the Chevalier, because nobody grows Chevalier in Scotland.
Yeah.
Who does grow it?
Who grows Chevalier?
Yeah.
Someone in Norfolk, mainly, in England. We're thinking about trying it. It was grown, there was records of it being grown in Fife, which is where our farm is, in the 1700s. But the problem is it grows very tall. And in Scotland, typically, as you approach harvest and the sun's out and everyone's going to be going, oh, it's going to be a great harvest, you then get a storm and everything gets knocked over. So the taller your barley, the more susceptible it is to wind, obviously. So there's 2 ways of counteracting that. You either just use your shelter fields, so we've got lots of trees around, or you put on a suppressor to stop it growing too high. And it doesn't affect the flavour, it just keeps the growth down.
I've got a follow-up question. Where did you get your milk from?
The mill,
The mill?
we bought it
From
News.
Imperial, right?
No.
No. Did she show you that?
Yeah. The red mill.
No,
No,
she might have got confused.
The malt dresser.
The malt dresser. Sorry, the
So
red.
if you go underneath the malt floor
I did.
into a kind of electrical cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that big wooden thing,
Yes.
that is a dresser.
It's a dresser.
So one stage extra you have to do, if you're going to grow your barley and malt it yourselves, you have to dress it to remove the sort of terminals, the bits you don't want put through the system. You then, and a fair amount of stones as well, off the field. So that piece of equipment is a Porteous dresser. It's wooden, and when we were building Ardnamurchan for Sykes, who were the guys building all our equipment, we're also dismantling the Imperial Distillery at the same time, and they brought that across in the present. But it's become a kind of sarcophagus because we put it in under the malt floor.
Can't get it out.
It's too big to get out.
There were spider webs on it, and I tried to grab one.
It's like a museum piece.
It's great. Karen's so proud of it.
It's pretty big.
It's pretty big.
It's pretty big, and it doesn't work, and we don't know what to do.
But it's there, and that will be a trivia question later in the year.
It will be. Yeah. It's a great question to have, and use.
And I saw the only other Porteous dresser I've ever seen, because obviously Porteous make mills normally.
I think the other ones
They're very famous.
right?
But the only other dresser I've ever seen was at Speyburn. So Speyburn have the most amazing drum malting thing. Tamdu used to have, they had some in the boxes. But Speyburn is all still there, the whole drum malting system. It's absolutely amazing. It's a Victorian engineering. It hasn't been working now for probably 40 years, but if you want to go and see a drum malting, go to Speyburn, which is just outside.
If you're interested in production, apparently Speyburn is the best distillery to go to
It's a wee bit too hot in the still room, but apart from that, it's
So were those
no. So drums were literally, imagine big water tanks, that kind of shape. They were that, and everything went in and got mixed up. Sounds in boxes, from memory, were more of a kind of contained area, rather than...
Yeah, they're bordered.
Yeah.
3 equal.
Gents, I think from a formal point of view, I think we should wrap up.
Formally ending.
Stop the recording. Yeah.
I'll do the thank you. Thank you, Alex. Thank you. It's an interesting time, and obviously the next time we get to do this, capacity of events, and have people coming from distilleries doing, this amount of tastings over the last couple of weeks. Will be in 2 years from now when the next Grand Fest happens. But this is a fun tasting for me because there is such a history between Adelphi and Ardnamurchan and the Oak Barrel, and I was barely in the whiskey industry last time you guys were here. So it's cool to take up the reins there and keep doing it, and I'm more than excited to keep that going. I'll end the recording here, so my promises are not. So I don't have to commit to giving people free whiskey, basically. No one will get to the end.